When she first came to me, she believed that his love was like the only thing that she needed in her life. And she said that she had forgotten how to function alone. And that was how Leina described limerence for her. Except at that time, when she first experienced her first couple of episodes with limerence, she had no idea that was called limerence. But every time she didn't hear from the guy, it felt like she was suffocating. It felt like she wasn't being remembered. She was actually forgotten by the guy. And it wasn't just emotional. Like, she was feeling all this like emotional, like roller coaster stuff, but it was also physical. So like her chest would tighten, her stomach would churn and have that, that kind of sinking kind of feeling in her stomach whenever the guy didn't reply. And the silence from the different guys and the different limerent objects that she had throughout her life, it always felt like punishment and always made her feel worse than what she felt before she met them. So today's case study or today's story is from Leina. Okay, she has okayed her story to be shared with you guys on my channel, and it's all about her limerence journey and how she actually went from being limerent to actually being completely healed and cured and in a loving relationship right now. So I've changed her name and some details, okay, just to protect her privacy. But Leina and I met a couple years ago. Okay, so when we first met, I actually clicked very well with her. She's deeply sensitive, very introspective, very creative, very intuitive person, and very funny as well. So from an outsider's point of view, from my point of view, she seemed very engaging and very magnetic. So I was kind of sitting there wondering, why would such an interesting person, such an interesting lady, not be out there like, dating like tons of people, but instead like limerent for people that, didn't really like her in the way that she wanted to. Leina is a creative director at a fashion magazine. Okay, so known for her eye, her grace, her fashion sense, the way that she dresses people, the way that she actually looks at all these fashion pieces. And ironically, what she actually does in her job is that, she needs to be able to see others clearly and to see how things actually come together for people in terms of putting together a magazine and putting together certain photo shoots as well. But the interesting thing was that, or the irony is that although she could see others very clearly, she couldn't seem to be able to see herself. So Leina is actually a very, very accomplished creative director, and she actually had like, her resume is just amazing. Okay, she has achieved a lot of things in the art in the fashion world. But interestingly, she doesn't really talk about her achievements a lot. So that was something that I picked up on. And when we first met and we kind of was talking about her job, and I realized like how many things and how many successes she has actually seen in her career. But for some reason, she kept brushing it off and kind of like sweeping it aside and telling me like, oh, that's not important, oh, that's a very small thing. And I remember she actually shared like she won this particular award. I had to Google it. And it's just like this really, really prestigious award in her industry. And she was just like talking about it like, like it didn't matter, or like it was a very small thing. So this was something that I really picked up on, which was the inability to kind of like see herself fully and to see herself clearly. And things like that are usually something that I see in a lot of my limerence clients as well. They don't actually really see themselves as amazing people or like unique individuals. They always see themselves as like kind of small and invisible in comparison to the world outside and in comparison to their limerent object. Okay, so this was one sign, and it also could be a sign of low self-esteem. Okay, so when she first reached out to me for guidance, Leina was one of those that was already very, very self-aware. Okay, so when she reached out to me, she was like already at some point in her journey, like in her limerence journey, and she told me that, oh, Sonia, I know this is limerence that I'm experiencing, but knowing it doesn't really help me because I kind of know it, I can process it cognitively, but I still feel like I'm being possessed mentally, emotionally, and like my entire life is like taken over by this thing. So for Leina, she had been caught in limerence before, and for other men, okay, throughout her life, I think she said it started around like her teens. But this time, the particular episode that she came to me for felt like really the worst episode. Okay, it was with a man from her social circle. So not especially someone really close to her, but accessible enough to become like a daily fixation, because she would like see him all the time, right? And what she did was, and what many of us would actually resonate with, was she would scan his Instagram for clues, zoom in on comments from other women in particular, overanalyze texts that they left behind, the emojis that they left behind, and she kind of hates herself, she shared, for doing things like that, because she feels disgusted was her word that she used. Disgusted with herself whenever she does things like that, whenever she thinks that way. So she would tell me like, oh, I hate how much I care. This guy probably doesn't even really think about me the same way that I'm thinking about him, but I feel like I am living for his breadcrumbs. And she wasn't sleeping very well. Okay, she's constantly thinking about this guy and whether he liked her and whether it would kind of move forward in the way that she wanted to. Her appetite was off as well. And worse, she had slowly abandoned her creative passions for like more than a year by then. So, like I shared, earlier, Leina is actually very creative, and one of the things that she really loved doing was actually Chinese like calligraphy and watercolor painting. And I could tell that she really, really loved it, because like her entire face like lit up, and she showed me photos and stuff like that of like pieces that she had drawn. But she then admitted that she hadn't painted in over a year. Like she just feels like mentally and emotionally she's so exhausted. And I would guess by this whole limerence thing with this guy, that her entire mental and emotional capacity is taken over by this person, and she, no longer is placing herself as the number one person in her life. So her emotional world was spinning around this guy's orbit, and she felt powerless to actually stop it, and she felt like this cycle would never end, and she felt like it was really, really bringing a lot of disruption and a lot of pain to her life. So hi everyone, I'm Sonia, writer, psychologist, creative, spiritual guide, and intuitive mentor. So this channel is a home for soulful teachings on healing, love wounds, intuition, creativity, and energy. Basically anything personal growth. Okay, I'm obsessed with personal growth, and you'll receive grounded insights, energetic frameworks, and spiritual guidance to help you come home to yourself and live a life of deep resonance, clarity, and expansion. So basically, I combine, in a blended sort of learning and a blended sort of teaching, I combine a unique blend of science and spirituality. So energy healing frameworks, the 5-element framework, and I combine it with psychology, neuroscience, NLP, and anything like sciencey and psychology that I personally am pretty obsessed with as well. So subscribe and journey with me toward a life that feels like home to your soul. So when I started Leina through the entire like consulting and coaching process, we started very gently, okay, not really with solutions, but kind of with more awareness and observing. So this is sometimes how I start things with certain clients, depending on their inclination. So Leina shared that, she came from what others call a happy family. Okay, she got along with her siblings and got along with her parents, at least on the surface. But she also shared that she always felt invisible. So bracketed between a golden older sister who excelled in school and church, and a sporty younger brother, okay, already playing like certain sport for the state at the time. So Leina was the only creative one, okay, but in her words and in her own experience, it just meant that she was like sensitive, hard to define, artsy, intangible, and no one really understood her, and no one really kind of like related to her or knew what to do with her. So she learned early on that to be noticed, she had to give more. Okay, please people even more. Make herself interesting, make herself stand out, make herself worthy of other people's attention and validation and affection. make herself less difficult and less sensitive. Okay, and going in deeper into her family stuff, and now we are touching on like intergenerational stuff and possibly ancestral patterns as well. She shared that the pattern actually was always present with the women in her family, especially on her mom's side. So her mother, her aunties, her grandmother, great grandmother, they were all like really loving and very giving women, but in her own perspective, they were all married to emotionally unavailable men. Okay, which is like a major tenet in limerence, because in limerent individuals, we tend to get very attracted to emotionally unavailable partners and we chase after them. Okay, so she shared that her mom used to like cook a lot, used to buy all sorts of gifts, all sorts of things, would actually be really giving of her own time and her own energy just to get a tiny bit of appreciation from her dad. Okay, and seeing all that when she was growing up, she felt that she internalized that kind of love, and felt that love had to be something that was earned and wasn't given out so easily or so quickly. So her self-worth had been entangled with being chosen, being noticed, being wanted by someone else, and always having to work very hard to be noticed by other people. So she was literally repeating the same ancestral and intergenerational cycle, that was present in her family. And another thing that I look at, because I do a blended kind of thing with psychology and spirituality, I looked at her energy patterns as well, and I do that through BaZi, which is a ancient Chinese metaphysical way of looking at energy. I looked at her birth chart, and she had what is a concept in BaZi. So she had a very strong rock wealth star. And this particular star, which I personally have as well, okay, so I can really relate to how people struggle with it, is often associated with chasing external validation, overextending energy towards other people, struggling with blurred emotional boundaries. Okay, people with strong rock wealth star can be generous to a fault, okay, but can also be prone to over pursuing and losing themselves in others, and allowing yourself to be taken advantage of by all kinds of characters, because rock wealth people are very open and giving, okay, and it's a kind of energy that attracts a lot of people. Like I said earlier on, Leina is very magnetic, very engaging. So this kind of very open, kind of very like charismatic kind of energy, it draws people in. The problem with that is that you can draw in all sorts of people, and people who may not be aligned with you or may not actually appreciate you and may not actually have your best intentions. Okay, they're only there to take from you and not to really give back. Okay, and looking at her energy, 5-element energy chart as well, she was a young fire element. So there's yin and yang, right? You probably heard of it. Yin is a bit softer and Yang's a little bit more out there and a bit more explosive. So a young fire is more like a sun, okay? What is the sun like? Well, the sun is, it's all about being radiant, being expressive, being visible, having a lot of energy, having a lot of fire, right? But her chart was also dampened by excess water. Okay, she was born in a winter month, a very wet month. And water kind of dampens the fire. It's kind of like, you have this fire burning and then you throw water over it. So this will kind of create a character, a personality that is very prone to fear through too much of overthinking or over introspection, and emotional volatility, which the person or the individual keeps to themselves all the time. So instead of shining outward like the sun in the sky, her fire tends to go inward. It tends to flicker inward. It becomes self-doubt. Okay, she would shine in certain areas, like she really shone, in her art classes in school, and as a creative director later on as an adult. She was warm, but there was always this certain kind of hesitancy that people detected from her. She said that people found it difficult to get close to her, and she was very bright and very warm, but not really very sure of her right to shine, because there was all these self-worth and self-esteem issues kind of tied up with everything. So to share the transformational steps that we actually took, okay, healing with Leina didn't actually begin with just cutting ties completely with this guy that she was limerent for now. And it wasn't about deleting like dating apps and stuff like that as well. It was to begin with returning to her own nervous system. So to kind of ground herself and to steady herself in the present. So returning to her own breath and returning to her inner personality, that young fire warmth that she actually, already had at the core of her character. So we introduced firstly a daily heart-holding ritual. So each morning, Leina would hold her hand over her heart, look into the mirror, okay, and say, positive affirmations like, I choose you first, you are worth loving even without being chosen by a guy, you don't have to earn your belonging anymore, you are worthy of love, things like that. So at first, she found it really weird. And to be honest, when I did, positive self-affirmations for myself whilst looking in the mirror, okay, this whole thing is actually called a mirror ritual. I found it really stupid, to be honest, because I'm just like looking at myself and telling myself that I look amazing, that I'm great and stuff like that. It's just really, really corny. Okay, and she couldn't bring herself to do it at first, okay, but it is very normal, okay, everybody goes through that phase where they find it silly. But when she got herself, got herself over that silly feeling, and she tried the ritual, she said that it was very emotional for her at first. So there was a lot of crying and she couldn't really get through a proper 5-minute ritual. Then after some time, she softened a bit and she started being more confident and more comfortable with saying good things to herself. So over time, something remarkable really happened. She said that, she started kind of telling herself like positive stuff or comforting herself in a very positive way, even without a mirror. So this is the kind of transformation that I want you to have and that some of my clients have had and I also have had, okay, from limerence, because it's going from not being able to see yourself to, telling yourself that you are amazing. And why the mirror ritual is so important is because a lot of us, okay, limerent or not, we struggle with looking at our own reflection. Okay, a lot of people don't like to take pictures of ourselves because we think that we look very unattractive in photos. We feel very uncomfortable with how we look and we don't look at the mirror or don't look at our own reflection as a result. Of course, there are people on the other end where they look too much at themselves and their own reflections, right? But over here, when we talk about limerence, there are people that actually don't like the way they look and they actually reject themselves in that way. Limerence is all about rejecting the self for the attentions and affections of another person who cannot, and will not give you that affection. So it's all about being comfortable in your own skin, being comfortable with how you look and the things that you actually say to yourself. I'm a very big proponent of the language being like a spell. Okay, whatever you tell yourself and how you talk to yourself will determine your how you show up in the world and will determine your behaviors as well. So if you keep telling yourself that you are crap and that your achievements don't mean anything, that your life doesn't mean anything and stuff like that, it's very easy to become or to stay in that kind of space where you feel very worthless. Okay, but when we shift that kind of thinking from telling ourselves that we are worth it, no matter whether someone likes us back or not, no matter whether we get a job or not, we are still worthy people, and that our worth doesn't depend on external factors, your space then shifts, your energetic space shifts from being very worthless to being very, very worth it, to a very worthy space. And another thing that I recommended Leina to do, and I recommend you to do as well, is to start dressing in a way that makes you feel very comfortable. Okay, there are a lot of fashion trends out there, and I would say that the majority of them don't actually fit, any of us. Okay, but there's always a pressure to look a certain way, whenever we are out there in public, especially if you are living in a society or in a country where looks is very paramount. But I will encourage you to actually go, okay, and this can be a very fun project. Go and try on different clothing, okay, different accessories, different styles, different perfumes as well, different shoes, and take note of what actually makes you feel very comfortable, okay, which makes you feel like, you can walk around in this outfit and you feel like yourself, okay. And why I recommend this is because, to me, okay, confidence is not just about looking good. Confidence is about feeling good, more importantly, feeling like you are in your own skin. It's not about like wearing the latest fashion trends and feeling super uncomfortable and having to pull up your dress all the time and stuff like that. It's about wearing things or materials or fabric or styles that make you feel very, very fun and very confident, that you want to show, this side of yourself to the world. When you dress in things that you actually like dressing in, or in a style that you love dressing in, you're going to behave in a very different way. You're going to be a little bit more open, you're going to be more confident, and you're going to be very comfortable. And let me tell you, people can notice that change in your energy. Okay, it's not about looking like, like a celebrity. It's about looking the best that you can, but more importantly, something that you feel comfortable in, that you can express yourself in. Okay? So try this, go to a shop, go on Pinterest and just browse things that you actually, styles that you actually want to wear, or you want to have on yourself, or want to possess, and certain scents and things like that as well, which could express yourself a little bit more. Okay, and besides all of that, we also tried affirmation journaling. So each day, before the day began, she'll actually write 3 things that she admired about herself. Okay, not just surface traits, but things like, I love how deeply I feel, I love my curiosity, I love my introspection, I love how I'm so talented in design. It was very difficult at first, and because humans were not wired to actually say good things about ourselves, okay, because since young, whenever we did that, we are told that we are very vain and very narcissistic. But when you start to get into that practice and that habit, you start to then see yourself as a full person, as someone that actually has strengths and has needs and is able to contribute in different ways to other people's lives. So you start to see yourself clearly. And you might already have noticed the thread where limerent individuals tend not to see ourselves clearly, and tend to play very small and very invisible in the world. Another exercise that she did was this thing called trigger tracking. Okay, so she journaled the moments that she thought of her limerent object. She traced the emotions to their root. Okay, so often it wasn't about him at all, but a longing to feel chosen, to feel seen, and to feel safe. Okay? Another practice that she also did was to reclaim the creativity and that young fire that she actually completely lost, okay, when she was in her limerent phase. So she then started small. Okay, she began writing daily micro poems. Okay, she's also like into poetry like myself. Sometimes it's just like a few words. Sometimes it was like a really, really long like sonnets and phrases. And sometimes just 2 or 3 lines. And from there, she actually went on to start painting like really, really small like squares of paper. Not the huge ones that she used to do, but she started painting on very small spaces. So each one was kind of like, kind of building or integrating that practice all over again into her life. And each act, okay, of creativity, which was very simple, very straightforward, and very manageable, very doable, it reignited her elemental fire and her warmth within her. And this is very important because when you are limerent, you tend to completely forget your life. You tend to completely forget that you have hobbies, that you are a person with needs, with thoughts, with interests. You forget all of that and abandon all of that for your limerent object. So this was kind of reclaiming back her life and reclaiming back her sense of self. So over time, okay, all these things take time and it's a process. I like to emphasize that it's not something that you do and it happens overnight. But when you keep doing these things and you check in with yourself again, you start to feel very different. And for her, she started to feel more like herself. And over a couple of months of doing this, she realized that she had stopped looking or checking Instagram for her limerent object's profile. She had stopped looking at his photos and she never even thought of him. Like, he didn't even intrusively pop into her head every now and then anymore because she was so into herself and into her own life. So now Leina no longer reaches for her phone first thing in the morning. She reaches for herself. She still does the affirmations ritual in the morning, and she still does her mirror rituals as well, especially on days where she feels like, things are going to be a bit tougher at work. She still talks to herself, like as in her own reflection, and tells herself amazing things about herself. And right now she has completely returned to poetry and to painting as well. And she has moved on from like watercolor painting to like acrylic painting and other kinds of modalities that she actually wanted to play with back then, but she didn't give herself the chance to. And she started actually being very public about her art pieces. So she started posting it on Instagram and stuff like that, because it used to be a very hidden thing for her, almost like as if she was embarrassed of her art. But she started posting it again on Instagram and on various social media places, not for the likes, but because it made her feel alive and she wanted to share it with people that were close to her. And she also has been dating for quite some time. She's been in a stable relationship with a guy for quite some time already. But she started off that dating process very slowly and very consciously as well. And whenever she felt like her old limerent patterns and limerent wounds would start to kick in, she would actually stop herself, get self-aware, breathe, ground herself before she actually proceeded with, whatever it was that she wanted to do with the guy. So there were now boundaries and clarity when she was meeting all when she met her new boyfriend and when she started on her dating phase as well. No more chasing, especially chasing of emotionally unavailable men. She sits there, she magnetizes, she reciprocates, but she also receives and she chooses. It's no longer about overgiving anymore. So she shared with me that, for the first time in many, many years, because she had been limerent all throughout her teens and her 20s, first time in many, many years, she felt like she could finally see herself, that because she could see herself, other people could see her as well. And she felt like, she's finally living inside her own body and not chasing after someone else or making that person the center object of her entire life. Okay, so I'm really happy for Leina. Okay, it's one of really, really cool client, and we are still in touch and still hang out. And that was the story of a transformation, and I hope that it inspires you in some way, especially if you're feeling as if you cannot get out of this limerent cycle, it's too painful. Let me tell you that you totally can. Leina is one example. I'm another example. And we are just normal people. Normal human beings with no special abilities to actually transform limerence or anything like that. But through just being very conscious and aware of where these patterns came from and where we actually want to be and what kind of life we actually want to have. When you do that and you're aware of that, you then are able to actually make the changes that you want to make. Okay, so if you see yourself in Leina's story, just know this. Okay, you're not dramatic, you're not too much, and you're not a broken person. Okay, don't let anybody tell you that. Your longing for affection or for love, even from the wrong people, is not a flaw. Okay, it's a doorway. Okay, it's a sign to yourself. And the destination is not him, it is you. It's all about coming back to you and loving yourself before you can also share that love and receive that love from other people. So I invite you to explore the links down below. I'm having a healing limerence workshop coming up soon in either fall or winter of 2025 if you're listening to this in the future. Okay, the link will probably be down below already. I have a book on healing and limerence and romantic obsession. Do grab it if you want more information. Or if you want something transformative, like how Leina actually went through, book a private soul consult. It could be an energy reading. Some of us are just more prone to limerence than other people. Or it could be a full package where I kind of go through all the psychological tools that you can actually take with you on your healing journey and beyond. Or a mix of psychology and energy. Just let me know. Okay, everything is down below. You are always worth it. Okay, remember that you are not defined by your limerent object or by your limerence. So take care, and I will see you in the next video.